It's Monday, October 31. In the headlines, Met Service monitoring a tropical storm south-southwest of Morant Point, Jamaica. Children 12 and under can access free medical care at the University Hospital of the West Indies. Justice Ministry to move against motorists with outstanding traffic tickets. Regionally, Barbados and Rwanda are building partnerships. And in sports, the future of netball in Jamaica is looking bright. So says Sunshine Girls head coach Connie Francis. This is the news on PBC Jamaica. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. Effective immediately, parents of children 12 years and younger can access free medical care at the University Hospital of the West Indies, the UHWI. The Health Ministry made the announcement on Sunday. According to the ministry, the new arrangement is in response to the increase in viral illnesses and the resulting overcrowding at the Bustamante Hospital for Children, usually seen at this time of the year. The ministry says children and the elderly are among the most vulnerable groups as the flu and gastroenteritis season intensifies. In that regard, it says affected persons should only take paracetamol and visit the nearest health center if symptoms of the flu and gastroenteritis do not improve. For your information, although COVID-19 and the flu have seemingly similar symptoms, there are some distinct differences. This short video from the Pan American Health Organization explains.
Confused or worried about symptoms during the COVID-19 pandemic? If you only have a runny nose or are sneezing, you may have a cold or allergies. Have you lost your sense of taste or smell? Are you experiencing shortness of breath? These are common symptoms of COVID-19. Coughing, fatigue and fever are all symptoms of both flu and COVID-19. If you have a temperature above 38 degrees Celsius or 100.4 degrees Fahrenheit, call your local healthcare provider or hotline for medical advice and ask whether you need a COVID-19 test. If you have any COVID-19 symptoms or are waiting for test results, stay home and isolate from other members of your household. Drink fluids and eat well. Always wear a mask if you're in the same room as others. If you test positive for COVID-19, follow your healthcare provider's advice. If at any time you experience a danger sign like difficulty breathing, chest pain, confusion, loss of speech or mobility, don't wait. Seek medical care immediately. Remember, you can prevent colds, flu and COVID-19 by following a few basic precautions. Stay safe and protect each other. We're in this together. Know your risk, lower your risk.
At news time, tropical storm watch remains in effect for Jamaica as Hurricane Hunter aircraft are investigating a potential tropical cyclone number 15 just south of the island. The Meteorological Service of Jamaica says this means that tropical storm conditions continue to pose a possible threat to Jamaica. At 7 a.m., the disturbance was centered near latitude 15.6 degrees north, longitude 76.7 degrees west, or about 265 kilometers, that's 165 miles south of Kingston, 165 miles south-southwest of Morant Point, Jamaica. The system is moving towards the west near 17 kilometers per hour. That's 12 miles per hour, and a westward to west-north westward motion is expected over the next few days. On the forecast track, the center will continue moving south of Jamaica today and pass south of the Cayman Islands tomorrow before approaching Central America on Wednesday. According to a release from the Met Service, maximum sustained winds remain near 65 kilometers per hour with higher gusts, and the disturbance is expected to become a tropical storm later today. Strengthening is forecast during the next couple of days, and the system could be near hurricane intensity by Wednesday. Fishers on the quays and banks are reminded to exercise extreme caution at this time due to dangerous sea conditions. Tropical storm force winds are expected over southern offshore waters today. The system has the potential to also produce 50 to 100 millimeters of rainfall and strong gusty winds reaching near tropical storm force starting over eastern and southern parishes later today. Residents should be on the alert for possible flash flooding in flood-prone areas. The Meteorological Service continues to monitor the progress of this system, and all interests are encouraged to pay special attention to further releases. The government is working to improve the ease of doing business in Jamaica. Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce, Senator Auburn Hill, says one way in which the Andrew Holness administration has been doing this is through the digitization of its services with initiatives such as the National Business Portal. The portal is managed by the Jamaica Promotions Corporation, JAMPRO. Speaking at the 13th Bureau of Standards Jamaica National Quality Awards Ceremony and Banquet held in New Kingston recently, Senator Auburn Hill noted ongoing interministerial collaborations aimed at ensuring that Jamaica's systems, processes and trade agreements facilitate cross-border commercial activity and ease of business.
The focus is very clear on export and building that business. So all our agencies must focus. So the government continues to foster an enabling environment. The private sector must commit to make many more manufactured goods.
Senator Hill informed that collaborative opportunities in agribusiness, financial services, infrastructure, manufacturing and professional services were explored during a business mission to Guyana.
Go over there, work hard, make business, do well, and make Jamaica rich.
Senator Hill recently led a 38-member Jamaican delegation, largely comprising private sector representatives, on a business mission to Guyana.
Therefore, I challenge you businessmen and businesswomen with capital and access to capital to utilize best practices and be guided by internationally recognized service standards to scale up your operations and expand your export reach.
He notes that even as the government continues to foster an enabling business environment, the private sector must commit to making manufactured products for export. Justice Minister Delroy Chuck says he will be seeking to have the licenses of motorists with outstanding traffic tickets suspended until their court matters are settled. He says the government will be taking a firm stand against indisciplined drivers, and in that regard, some motorists continuing to operate despite having several traffic tickets should no longer be tolerated. Approval will therefore be sought from Cabinet for significant changes relating to the issue of how outstanding traffic tickets are treated. The Justice Minister added that the new Road Traffic Act will be fully implemented within a few weeks to address a number of issues on the road. Grammy-winning international dancehall artist Shaggy has teamed up with renowned entertainment manager Sharon Burke to stage the inaugural Island Music Conference. The event is slated for February 8 to February 12, 2023. It will coincide with the celebration of Reggae Month under the theme Carry Culture. The aim of the conference is to educate entertainers, particularly those in Jamaica, about the business of music. And it comes at a time when some local entertainers face backlash over the content of their music. YouTube's Tuma Bassa, Tani Lawson from Audio Mac, Joel Ryan from Spotify, and Shawnee B from BBC One Extra have already been confirmed for the conference. Time now for the business report with Danita Rodney.
Do you want to create an event using high-end technology that gives your guests an out-of-this-world experience? This week's Young Boss specializes in that and much more. CEO of Adit Digital, Basil Bingham, tells us why his company is the future of digital marketing and more.
Hi, I'm Basil Bingham, CEO of Addict Digital Limited, and remember, the future is digital. All right, so under the Addict Digital umbrella, we operate in several niches. Upon inception, we decided that we wanted to do cool stuff, create cool experiences. I like to say Addict is an experience company. We create immersive experiences through digital signage solutions and technology. So the core principles of the business were formed upon the idea of immersive experience, creating experience. Say you're doing an expo and you contact Addict Digital to execute your event. We will go above and beyond to ensure that whatever solution we're providing can aid, whether it's through an audio-visual assistant, a virtual assistant, through a human hologram, or some tablet connectivity. I was really excited about doing advertising through digital signage. The idea came from just simply TV placement. And then it felt as though TV would not be enough, especially as a new company trying to solidify ourselves in the space. And we went on to further research, partnerships, and that's where we began, with dabbling with technologies outside of the scope of what we see every day, to ensure that when we work with a client, their product, their brand, whatever the initiative is, the experience is different. It's lasting for the target demographic. We create software for businesses, companies, MSMEs, whether it's website, mobile applications, customize our enterprise software. We do it. We are looking at so many things right now. There are so many opportunities in front of us with the event sector being back on track, our events operations. We're projecting an uptick for this holiday quarter, per se. On the software side, we're working with a few clients now, building a few solutions, and we're looking at some regional opportunities spanning outside of Jamaica. And of course, as we grow, we're looking to onboard more staff, add additional members to the team, whether it's on the internship level or on a full-time level.
For your market updates, in foreign exchange trading for Friday, October 28th, the US dollar sold for an average of $154.09. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $113.92. The pound sterling traded for $178.15, and the euro sold for an average of $157.44. In GSE trading, the GSE index declined by 1,837 points. The junior market index advanced by 25 points. The combined market index declined by 1,482 points, and the All Jamaican Composite Index declined by 2,403 points. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 97 stocks, of which 35 advanced, 43 declined, and 19 traded firm. Stocks advanced for 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited, 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited Variable Preference, and Access Financial Services Limited. Stocks declined for Burke Investments Limited, Caribbean Assurance Brokers Limited, and Caribbean Cement Company Limited. Trading firm were AMG Packaging and Paper Company Limited, CAC 2000 9.5% Cumulative Redeemable Preference Shares, and Siboney Group Limited. The overall volume leaders were Whitsun Wind Farm Limited Ordinary Shares with over 31 million units, Sagicor Select Funds Limited Financial with over 2 million units, and Dollar Financial Services Limited with over 1 million units. In regional stocks, in Trinidad and Tobago, the Investment Fund was the volume leader with over 50,000 shares, followed by Calypso Macro Index Fund with 111 shares being traded. On the Barbados Stock Exchange, Goddard Enterprises Limited was the sole security trading 700 shares. In regional business, in Trinidad and Tobago, reports are that the country's electricity sector is facing bigger problems than having cheap electricity rates. More in this Business Watch report.
According to Finance Minister Colm Imbert, some of the power producers in TNT have very inefficient plants. Speaking at a recent event hosted by the Energy Chamber, the minister says this is among some of the challenges facing the country's electricity sector. Minister Imbert further explains.
So they use far more natural gas than they should, and that is a big problem. And we're having some issues with TGU as well, which is the most modern, most efficient plant, but they're having some issues with it. And when TGU goes down, we have to switch to the other older producers who consume far more gas.
And regarding electricity rates, Minister Imbert notes the Regulated Industries Commission is currently looking at this. However, he reiterates this may not be the real problem.
TNTEC isn't paying NGC for gas. The price that the government buys the gas from the upstream producers is higher than the price it is billed to TNTEC. So those are the big issues that we have to deal with, not so much the cost of electricity to the consumer. We are subsidizing it far more than you think. Sure. It's not being charged at the appropriate rate. Okay? So that's the elephant in the room we have to deal with.
According to Minister Imbert, electricity is being subsidized far more than people think. And regarding other sources of power, the minister says government would like to get solar facilities going.
In market data for oil prices fell after weaker than expected factory activity data out of China and on concerns that the country's widening COVID-19 curves will curtail demand. Brent crude futures dropped 69 cents to $95.08 a barrel, and West Texas Intermediate crude was down 84 cents at $87.06 a barrel. And that was the business report on PBCJ. I'm Grenada Rodney.
In regional news, in Antigua, Prime Minister Gaston Brown is projecting an economic growth rate of 7 to 8% over the next decade.
On the back of strong foreign direct investment and public-private partnerships, the Honourable Gaston Brown adds very soon the losses incurred during the COVID-19 pandemic will be erased.
We're pretty confident that in 2023, we will recover all of the lost gains. So by the end of this year, of the 20% that we lost, we would have recovered about 15%. And next year, we will do at least another 8%. So there will be a net increase in the economy of at least 3%. Mm-hmm. And I think that this country's economy is set to grow by about 7-8% for the next 10 years, based on the amount of investments.
He adds development on the Sister Isle will be a major contributor to the growth strategy and outlook.
In other regional news, Barbados and Rwanda are building partnerships in several areas as the two countries work to cement ties. That came from Prime Minister Mia Mottley as she engaged with Barbadians attending a diaspora meeting in Miami, Florida, titled A Conversation with the Prime Minister of Barbados at the Florida International University over the weekend.
We're already working with the Rwandans on digitization with us in Barbados. So these things have already started to pay a dividend from the opening of our embassy in Accra, in Ghana, and in Nairobi, in Kenya. And just from a psychological perspective, let's get real. We become an independent country, we open a headquarters, we open an embassy where the UN is in New York. We open an office where the UN is in Geneva. We didn't open one in Vienna. But how do we open in the North Atlantic countries and we don't open in Africa, where the United Nations Environmental Programme, which is managing the greatest crisis that the world is facing in terms of the climate crisis, in terms of biological diversity, in terms of those things that are required to save our planet.
In news from Grenada, while foreign banks have withdrawn their services within the ECCU, growth has been recorded within indigenous states.
For the past few years, the Caribbean witnessed a number of withdrawals of Canadian banks as well as growth among credit unions. Governor of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, Timothy N.J. Antwine, addressed both issues during a recent interview with journalist Kalistra Farie. Governor Antwine said one influenced the other, as a big change in the financial landscape has forced the foreign banks out of the region, leaving the financial space dominated by indigenous banks and credit unions.
Today, when you look at the financial landscape, we're not just talking about banks, we're also talking about credit unions. And in fact, the credit unions, so here's the thing, indigenous banks are doing what the Canadian banks used to do. Credit unions are doing what some indigenous banks used to do. So there is choice. There is choice. Here's the thing. Look at mortgage rates in Grenada now. The typical loan, a mortgage, say a 20-year mortgage, would range from a low of 4% to maybe 6.5%. Kalistra, that is a lower rate than you get in the United States right now. Competition amongst our banks and financial institutions have driven down interest rates, including for mortgages, and I gave that as an example. So all I'm saying is that while I understand the concern about the rapid change in the banking landscape, I'm also saying that there is adequate competition, maybe a little less choice, but adequate competition amongst the bank, in fact, fierce competition to get customers. And that has redounded to the benefit of the people of Grenada and our region because you're getting lower rates.
The governor addressed the ongoing issue that credit unions don't operate under the same regulations as banks and are now offering services that mirror commercial banks. Attempts have been made to come to an amicable regulation of the situation. However, Governor Antwine says the credit union movement needs to come together to decide whether or not they want to operate under the same regulations as banks.
You see, there are different views in the movement about the way forward. So I speak to credit union leaders all the time. And there are progressive leaders who will say, we recognize that we're doing more. In Grenada, credit unions control 1.2 billion in assets, about $1 billion almost in loans. I haven't checked recently, but I think 50,000 people are members of credit unions. That's how big the thing is. So these people recognize, given the importance of credit unions, given their increasing size and scale, they need to make sure that they are at the top of the game and they be given the requisite oversight and also support.
In St. Kitts and Nevis, with the absence of a regional robust carrier, the future of interregional travel is under the microscope. It was an issue two Caribbean officials were asked about at the recently held International Monetary Fund's annual meetings in Washington, D.C.
Finance Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Camille Gonzalez, told reporters that a study is currently being commissioned to determine the best way forward for regional travel, and that he hopes this is completed soon.
So what we have done at the level of the Caribbean Development Bank is get a general agreement from all the governments of the region that whatever replaces LIAT, whatever comes thereafter, is going to have buy-in and support from all the countries that this airline serves. That's a very important advancement because in the past, many countries did not chip in when things were difficult. So that's the first thing. The CDB is currently finalizing a study that tells us the following things. In this post-LIAT environment, or what is the optimal aircraft we should use? What is the optimal number of aircraft we need? What is the optimal location of a hub for the aircraft? What are the likely profitable routes and what are the routes that are unprofitable but nonetheless necessary? To what extent can the profitable routes subsidize the unprofitable routes? And what is the formula by which all governments will have to chip in to the upkeep of this regional airline? They have not yet finalized that report, and we're awaiting that report. The heads of government will deliberate on it very soon.
Mr. Gonzalez lamented that the COVID-19 pandemic was the death knell for regional carrier LIAT.
So here's where we are. Just like COVID killed a lot of people with pre-existing conditions, COVID killed LIAT, which had its own pre-existing conditions. And I think that we collectively, the governments of the region, probably didn't effectively anticipate the day after COVID when tourism would return and LIAT wouldn't be there to carry people around. The fact of the matter is that the previous structure, where the cost of supporting LIAT was borne almost exclusively by Barbados, Antigua and Barbuda and St. Vincent and the Grenadines, could not continue. Other countries could not be free riders in the process. Every country has to chip in if we're going to have an effective regional travel solution.
In international news, for a decade, Germany has been committed to phasing out nuclear power. The plan had been for the country's 3 remaining reactors to be shut down permanently at the end of this year. But with the war of Ukraine cutting off energy from Russia, many are asking if there is an ongoing role for nuclear power. Al Jazeera's Dominic Kane reports.
On a calm, sunny day, the Isar 2 power station in Bavaria seems unremarkable. But a closer inspection shows its energy source is nuclear, one of 3 reactors in Germany which together provide around 6% of the country's energy and which were due to be switched off permanently. But with Russian gas pipelines switched off, its coal embargoed and its oil soon to follow, the German government has serious worries about a sudden potential energy shortage in winter.
These 3 nuclear power plants that we have in operation today can actually continue to operate over the next year, until April 15th, as far as their respective capacities allow. That will have to be assessed individually, but this makes several things clear at the same time.
Some analysts believe prolonging the life of these reactors beyond April would be difficult.
The German nuclear industry has been winding up their activities for the past 10 years. They have essentially sent personnel away, highly skilled workers, which you can't just reactivate like that. So there's a whole bunch of questions.
The role of nuclear power polarizes politics here. The main opposition party says the 3 reactors should not be switched off in April. The centre-right Free Democrats, who are part of the federal government, are not ideologically opposed to that. And the far-right AfD goes further and says new reactors should be built. All of which means that there may well be a de facto pro-nuclear power majority in Parliament. It's something many in the governing Greens and SPD have spent their political lives campaigning against.
There's a huge portion of resistance within the Greens and the SPD to again reconsider this exit. But of course, energy prices are going through the roofs in Germany, and citizens are calling for relief.
The Chancellor says there is enough gas to get through the worst of winter, and that nuclear is only a short-term solution should the situation deteriorate. But polls suggest many people are not so sure.
In sports, Sunshine Girls head coach Connie Francis says the future looks bright for the development of netball. This follows the girls' spectacular performance at the just-ended America's Netball World Cup qualifiers. The tournament, which was staged at the National Indoor Sports Center from October 16 to October 22, saw the Jamaicans, without most of their experienced stars, thrash every team that crossed their path. The Sunshine Girls, who had already qualified for next year's World Cup in South Africa, used the tournament for development purposes. And on the pitch, Cricket West Indies has announced the squad for the West Indies Women's Under-19 training camp and trial matches to be played next month in Trinidad. The 23 players will participate in 2 trial matches on a Tuesday, November 1, and a 3rd trial match on Wednesday, November 2. And that's it for the news on PBCJ. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. You can follow us on our social media platforms at PBCJamaica. And remember, we are the People's Station.